Hello everyone, welcome to Drishti IAS. As we know, UPSC Prelims is less than 100 days away, so we have brought to you a video containing the most common mistakes that the aspirants have committed in the Pre Prayaas-2, which was the All India UPSC Open Mock Test conducted by Drishti IAS. So in this video, on the basis of data analysis, we have brought to you the most commonly committed errors along with the solutions to those. So keep watching. So the first question that was attempted wrong by a majority of the students, that is around 64% of the students got this question wrong, was question number 63 from the geography section of your open mock. The question said, consider the following statements. 1. Jhelum River passes through Wular Lake. 2. Krishna River directly feeds Koleru Lake. And 3. Meandering of Gandak River forms Kavar Lake. How many of the statements given above are correct? Now let's look at the first statement. Jhelum River passes through Wular Lake. This statement is factually accurate. Jhelum River actually feeds the Wular Lake. Wular Lake actually happens to be the largest freshwater lake of India and also the second largest freshwater lake of Asia. So this statement is correct. Where is Wular Lake found? It is in the Bandipora district of J&K, Jammu and Kashmir, and this lake also hosts an island which is called Zena Lunk Island. So these are a few facts that you may find important from the prelims point of view. Statement 1 is accurate. Statement 2 says Krishna River directly feeds Koleru Lake. Now where is the Koleru Lake, students? It is in Andhra Pradesh, and Krishna River directly feeds. Now this word directly is actually what is problematic, and most of you may have gotten this wrong. It does not directly feed it, but rather two tributaries, namely the Budameru and the Tammileru. These are the two tributaries that feed the Koleru Lake. And the third to this statement is wrong. The third statement says meandering of Gandak River formed Kavar Lake. Now meandering is the feature of a mature stage of river formation, and meandering of rivers forms oxbow lakes. Kavar Lake is actually the largest freshwater oxbow lake of Asia and also the first Ramsar site from Bihar. However, the question says that it was formed by the meandering of Gandak River. On the contrary, it was formed by the meandering of the Budhi Gandak River, which actually flows parallelly to the mainstream Gandak River. So we get this statement also as wrong, and the correct answer is option A, which says only 1. If we look at the solution, we'll see that this is the Wular Lake and the Jhelum River feeds the Wular Lake and of course passes through it. Talking about the Koleru Lake, it is somewhere here and it is fed by the two tributaries that we have discussed, namely the Budameru and the Tammileru. And finally, when we talk about the Kavar Lake, this is the Budhi Gandak and it flows parallelly to the mainstream Gandak, and it is this Budhi Gandak that actually feeds the, or that has formed the Kavar Lake in Bihar. The next question, question number 85, is from the government scheme section, and 63% of the students have got this wrong. The question says, with reference to the Prime Minister Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana PMDKY, consider the following statements. Number 1, the scheme targets districts identified on the basis of low agricultural productivity, moderate crop intensity and below average credit parameters. Now this statement is indeed accurate. Why? Because the scheme, namely the Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana, actually targets certain districts on the basis of some parameters. Now, what are those parameters? The parameters are low agricultural productivity, moderate crop intensity, as well as below average credit parameters. Therefore, the statement is indeed accurate. The second statement says it seeks to promote crop diversification and sustainable agricultural practices. Now, this again is correct. This scheme does in fact try to promote crop diversification as well as sustainable agricultural practices. However, we can also take a hint from the areas or parameters that it is targeting. So, if it is targeting low agricultural productivity, we can infer, we can deduce that of course it also seeks to promote agricultural activity. Further, it seeks to improve crop intensity. Also, another thing that you can remember is that it seeks to enhance storage facilities, particularly for the post-harvest phase. And of course, how will agricultural productivity as well as crop intensity improve? With the help of improved irrigation facilities. And finally, when we discuss below average credit parameters, then naturally the scheme aims to enhance and facilitate credit, right, for people involved. So this is correct. The statement is correct, but you can also remember all these things and you can derive this on the basis of the statement first that has been given. The third statement says it has been designed on the lines of Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. Now this is where the caveat lies, because most of the students are likely to think that it deals with Dhan Dhanya, it has to do with Krishi Yojana, so therefore it must be inspired by the Krishi Yojana, Krishi Sinchai Yojana as well. Of course, irrigation facilities have been mentioned, but it has been actually designed on the lines of aspirational districts program. Aspirational districts program was launched in 2018, where aspirational districts, that are the backward districts of the countries, were also targeted on certain parameters. So this scheme has been modeled along those lines and not the scheme that has been mentioned in your question. Therefore, statement 3 is wrong. You have option A, 1 and 2 only as the correct answer. Again, the next question from the environment section was attempted incorrectly by 62.6% of the students, and the question said, consider the following statements. Once the central government notifies an area as a community reserve, and then it is followed by 4 statements. So before we start attempting or looking at the 4 statements, let's first understand what is meant by a community reserve. So community reserve is basically a certain, let's say, patch of land or area of land that either a private individual or a community, for example, a village, right, volunteers to protect and preserve. So if there is an area, a small area, a certain land that is protected, that is volunteered to be protected either by a community like a village or by a private individual, then that land becomes a community reserve, and of course the responsibility of protecting the flora and the fauna of that area rests with the community or the individual in question. All right, now let's look at the 4 statements. 1. The chief wildlife warden of the state becomes the governing authority of such forest. Now this statement is inaccurate, because for the governance of a community reserve, the state government actually establishes a community reserve management committee. So a management committee is established, and the chief warden, wildlife warden, does not have the authority to govern such an area. The statement is wrong. Second, hunting is not allowed in such area. Now this again is incorrect, as surprising as it may appear to be. But in such an area, hunting is actually permitted. Then third statement says people of such areas are allowed to collect non-timber forest produce. This again is accurate because non-timber forest produce can be collected by people of a community reserve. The fourth says people of such area are allowed traditional agricultural practices. Now you might think that since it deals with a village community and people volunteering to protect an area, therefore traditional agricultural practices ought to be permitted in such an area, but this is inaccurate. Traditional agricultural practices, for example, jhum cultivation, are not allowed in such an area because they are usually unsustainable. So 1 and 4 statements are incorrect, 2 and 3 statements are correct, and therefore we have option B as the correct answer, which says only 2. The next question from International Relations, question 69, and almost 61.5% of you have gotten it wrong. So let's look at the question. The question says, consider the following countries, and 6 countries have been enumerated here. How many of the above mentioned countries share a land border with Ukraine? So Ukraine has been in news for the past few years, and as far as the land border of Ukraine is concerned, it's Hungary and Romania that share a land border with Ukraine, and therefore option A, which says only 2 of the given countries are correct, is your right answer. Now let's take a look at the map of Ukraine, and here we see various countries that share a border with Ukraine, starting with Belarus, of course Russia, then we have Moldova, Romania, Hungary, Slovakia and Poland. So you ought to remember all the various nations that share a border with Ukraine, because this is a contemporary topic. Now that we are seeing the importance of the conducted mock tests and the preparation for UPSC, we have brought to you various courses that you might please want to check out for a better way for your UPSC preparation. The first one being the IAS Prelims GS plus CSAT course, which has 500 plus hours of classes, and study material as well as mock tests are provided to you at a reasonable price. And for more details, you might want to click the link in the description that has been given. Again, we also have brought to you the crash course, which for IAS Prelims 2026, consisting of GS paper 1, which includes completion of syllabus in just 2.5 months, as well as 6 online mock tests. You can also take a look at the crash course for IAS Prelims 2026, which is your CSAT, which is for your paper 2. Here again, the syllabus is completed within 2 months and has 45 plus classes. And finally, you can also check out Drishti's IAS Prelims Test Series 2026, which contains a total of 34 tests, 17 each for GS as well as CSAT, and we also provide you faculty-led test discussions. So kindly, for more information, call 87501 or download the Drishti Learning app. Also, the link is provided for all of these courses in the descriptions. Please do check them out. It is going to be very fruitful for your UPSC Prelims preparation. Now the next question. Again, over 60% of the students who attempted the question got it wrong. This question number 56 from the environment section. The common carbon metric supported by UNEP has been developed for. Now, what is the common carbon metric, students? It is actually a mechanism, or let's say a tool, which has been supported by the United Nations Environment Program. And what it does, it basically is used to assess and compare the carbon footprints of various buildings. So this is the task of the common carbon metric. Now, The A option says assessing the carbon footprint of building operations around the world. And the very first option happens to be the correct answer to this question. Hence, option A is correct. So, it does in fact assess the carbon footprints, the emissions basically of various buildings as well as compares them. But there is also an important, interesting thing that you might want to know. It does not include value-based interpretation of the measurements such as weightings or benchmarking. So, it does not provide an interpretation on the basis of various measurements like weightings, benchmarkings. It refrains from doing that. So, this is something, an interesting point that you might want to remember. The next question, again, over 60% students got it wrong. Economy section. Question 34, it says consider the following statements. Statement 1, India accounts for 3.2% of global export of goods. Statement 2 says many local companies and some foreign companies operating in India have taken advantage of India's production linked incentive scheme. Which one of the following is correct in respect of the above? Now, such questions I have noticed scares or makes a lot of aspirants uncomfortable. Now, let's look at its solution step by step and see that it is really not that hard to solve once you have certain concepts right in place. Now, of course, you have 4 options. Option A has either both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and statement 2 is the correct explanation for statement 1. Option B says both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and statement 2 is not the correct explanation for statement 1. C, statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. Option D says statement 1 is incorrect, but statement 2 is correct. Now, we know that if we figure out whether even at least one of the given statements is incorrect, then we know that our answer is going to be either option C or option D. So, let's first look at whether one of these statements is incorrect or not. So, it says India accounts for 3.2% of global exports of goods. Now, this data is inaccurate. India actually accounts for around 1.8% of global exports of goods. Okay. So, anyway, statement 1 becomes wrong, and this by default should lead you to the correct answer. But also, let's look at statement 2 to understand the logic behind it. So, suppose you do not know whether this data is correct or not. In that case, you would want to look at statement 2. Many local companies and some foreign companies operating in India have taken advantage of India's production linked incentive scheme. Now, when we have a production linked incentive scheme, its aim is basically to enhance and empower the manufacturing within the country. So, of course, if it's a PLI scheme, then whether companies that are local or whether they are operating in India, the whole idea is for them to increase manufacturing so that we can reduce imports and we can fulfill the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. So, this statement is correct. So, this one is wrong, this one is correct, and therefore, option D is the correct answer. Now, students, all of the explanations have been given in this PPT, and if you want to get the entire PPT for detailed explanations and detailed solution, kindly join us on our Telegram channel. The link is in the description box. So, the next question is from the history section, and again almost 60% of the students have gotten this question wrong. So, the question says which of the following is a work attributed to playwright Bhasa? A. Kavyalankar, B. Natya Shastra, C. Madhyam Vyayog, and D. Mahabhashya. Now, Bhasa, who was he? Students, he was the first known Sanskrit playwright. First known Sanskrit playwright. And he is famous for writing various works of literature, and Madhyam Vyayog is one of the most important ones, and therefore option C is the correct answer. But you might also want to look at who wrote the remaining plays or remaining works of literature that have been mentioned in the question. So for example, Kavyalankar was written by Bhamaha. Natya Shastra, very well known, a work of Bharat Muni, and Mahabhashya, students, was a commentary. Bhashya means commentary, and it was a commentary by Patanjali in the 2nd century BCE. So option C happens to be your correct answer. Now the next question again belonged to geography. 58% of the students have got this question wrong. Let's take a look at the question. Consider the following statements. 1. Amarkantak hills are at confluence of Vindhya and Sahyadri ranges. So no, students, the very first statement is wrong. Amarkantak are not at the confluence of Vindhya and Sahyadri, but rather Vindhya and Satpura ranges. Not Sahyadri, Satpura, and we will take a look at it in the map as well. The second one says Biligiri Rangan hills constitute the easternmost part of Satpura range. Now Satpura range, where does it begin from? It begins from East Gujarat. Alright, and it is around that part, Gujarat part, alright, and it goes, it is definitely not near Biligiri Rangan hills, which are actually in Karnataka, students. So again, easternmost part of Satpura is not possible because the Satpuras begin from East Gujarat and they would not traverse to Karnataka. Karnataka nonetheless is down south towards the west, not towards the east. Alright, students? So this again is wrong. The third statement says Sheshachalam hills constitute the southernmost part of Western Ghats. Now again, if we look at the map of India, Western Ghats are going to be somewhere here, starting from, let's say, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka and Kerala. Where are the Sheshachalam hills? They are in Andhra Pradesh. And they are actually a part of the Eastern Ghats. Eastern Ghats, not the Western Ghats. Hence, this statement is again correct, and therefore option D, which says none, is the correct answer. Now, you might want to look at the map. When we talk about the Satpura ranges and the Vindhya ranges, the Vindhyas here, somewhere here is your Amarkantak, alright, and your BRT, Biligiri Rangan hills, is somewhere here, alright, and Sheshachalam is again somewhere here. So all of these statements that were given are incorrect. The next question is from Polity, and approximately 57% of the students have got this question wrong. With reference to India, consider the following statements. 1. Judicial custody means an accused is in the custody of the concerned magistrate and such accused is locked up in a police station, not in a jail. Now, partly this question is correct because judicial custody actually means that the accused is in the custody of the concerned magistrate. But such accused is locked up in a jail, not in a police station, students. When we talk about judicial custody, the accused is locked up in a jail. The way to remember is J for judicial custody and J for jail. If the accused is locked up in a police station, that means he's under police custody. Or rather, the better way to put it, that if the accused is under police custody, he's going to be or she's going to be locked up in a police station, not a jail. So this statement is incorrect. Second, during judicial custody, the police officer in charge of the case is not allowed to interrogate the suspect without the approval of the court. So again, this is correct. because in judicial custody, you have to receive the approval of the court in order to interrogate the accused. Whereas in police custody, the police is permitted to interrogate the accused, but then the police would have to produce the accused before the magistrate within 24 hours. So this statement is correct, and we have 2 only, or option B as the correct answer. You can look at all the details in the PPT, and to get the PPT of detailed solution, kindly join us on our Telegram channel. The link is in the description below. The next question is from the environment section, question 57, and 56% of the students got this question wrong. Consider the following statements. Statement 1 says, at the 28th United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP28, India refrained from signing the Declaration on Climate and Health. This statement is accurate. India did in fact refrain from signing the UAE Declaration on Climate and Health. The COP28 Declaration on Climate and Health is a binding declaration, and if signed, it becomes mandatory to decarbonize the health sector. Now, this statement is incorrect. It is actually a voluntary declaration, students. It is non-binding, and it was signed by 140 member countries. So, 140 countries. It is a declaration of 140 countries. And no, of course, it is not binding, and of course, it requires voluntary decarbonization of the health sector of any country. It does not make it mandatory for decarbonizing the health sector. So this statement is inaccurate. Statement 3 says, if India's health sector is decarbonized, the resilience of its healthcare system may be compromised. Now, see students, India is of course taking leaps and making steps and taking measures for decarbonizing in general. But if there is a push for a quick or very urgent, immediate decarbonization, then there are various factors. For example, the cooling systems in hospitals, especially in underserved areas, that will not be able to withstand the pressure that quickly. We need to first make a foolproof system and then implement decarbonization very quickly. All right. So this is going to be problematic for India, and therefore India has refrained from signing. So this statement is accurate. India cannot push for decarbonization in the health sector particularly very immediately. All right. Now let's look at the various options. Which of the following is correct in respect of the above statements? A, both statement 2 and 3 are correct and both of them explain statement 1. No. B says both statement 2 and statement 3 are correct, but only one of them explains statement 1. C, only one of these statements 2 and 3 is correct, and that explains statement 1. D says neither statement 2 nor statement 3 is correct. So your correct answer is C, because out of these two, only one statement is correct, and this explains India's reluctance, or let's say India's hesitation to sign the declaration. Not this, not because it is binding and it makes decarbonization mandatory, but simply because for the time being, India is not fully prepared for its health sector to be decarbonized. India is not resilient at this current moment. So yes, one of these two statements is correct, and that explains statement 1, and therefore option C is your correct answer. Next question, again from environment. Almost 54% of the students have got this question wrong. Consider the following statements. Statement 1 says the European Parliament approved the Net Zero Industry Act recently. And statement 2 says the European Union intends to achieve carbon neutrality by 2040 and therefore aims to develop all of its clean technology by that time. Now, statement 1 is Correct. Because the European Parliament has actually approved very recently the Net Zero Industry Act, wherein they have tried to develop net zero technology or clean technology. They wish to develop clean tech very quickly. But what is the aim or what is the target here? The target here is 2050. The target year of the EU for achieving net neutrality is 2050 and not 2040 as has been mentioned in this question. So this statement becomes incorrect. When statement 2 is incorrect, we know that option C is the correct answer. For detailed explanation, you can please look at the PPT at our Telegram channel. The next question belongs to Polity. Question 11 says, consider the following subjects under the Constitution of India. 1. List 1, Union List. In the 7th Schedule. 2. Extent of the executive power of a state. 3. Conditions of the governor's office. For a constitutional amendment with respect to which of the above, ratification by the legislatures of not less than one half of the states is required before the bill is presented to the President for assent. Now, the question here is asking that out of these given items that have been listed before you, how many of them or making an amendment to which of them is going to require ratification by at least half the states? Now, when is ratification by at least half the states required? Whenever an amendment seeks to alter or make changes to the federal provisions of the Constitution under Article 368. Now, whenever we are dealing with altering the federal provisions, it requires a ratification by at least half of the states before that amendment can be sent to the President for his assent or her assent. Now, let's look at the options. Option 1 says list 1, Union List in the 7th Schedule. So, this list 1 Union List has been in fact listed under Article 368 proviso, and of course it requires the ratification by at least 50% of the states. Therefore, this is indeed correct. The second one says extent of the executive power of a state. Now again, when we are dealing with the executive power of a state, the ratification, it deals with the alteration or changes in the federal provisions, and therefore ratification by 50% of states is indeed required. Therefore, this should also fall under the proviso of Article 368. The third statement says conditions of the governor's office. Now, these have been listed in Part 6 of the Constitution and they are not mentioned here under Article 368 provisos, and therefore this we can rule out. So, again option A is your correct answer, 1 and 2 only. Again, the next question that people have got wrong, 52.25% students have got wrong, is from the Polity section, and it says, consider the following organizations, bodies in India. 1. The National Commission for Backward Classes. 2. The National Human Rights Commission. 3. The National Law Commission. 4. The National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission. How many of the above are constitutional bodies? Now, out of the given list, students, the first one, the National Commission for Backward Classes, is definitely a constitutional body, is mandated under Article 338B. So, this we have got. The second one, the National Human Rights Commission, is actually a body that was established by or under the Protection of Human Rights Act 1994, students, and this was later amended in 2006. So, this is not a constitutional body but rather a statutory body under the PHRA Act. The third one, the National Law Commission, not a constitutional body, also not a statutory body. So, it's a non-constitutional, non-statutory body that is constituted by executive order, executive action. All right, so this again non-constitutional. The fourth one, the National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission, again is a statutory body which is mandated under the Consumer Protection Act of 1986. This was particularly established in 1988. So again we have option A is the correct answer, which is only one, the National Commission for Backward Classes, or the NCBC. The next question, again from geography, over 51% of you have gotten it wrong. Consider the following pairs, and now we have the names of certain reservoirs and the name of certain states. The first one says Ghat Prabha, Telangana, 2 Gandhi Sagar, Madhya Pradesh, 3 Indira Sagar, Andhra Pradesh, and 4 Maithon, Chhattisgarh. Which of the how many of the above pairs are not correctly matched? Please focus on the word not. It's not asking you how many of these are correctly matched, but rather how many of these are incorrectly matched. So the first one is Ghat Prabha and the state is Telangana. This is wrong, students. This is present in the Belagavi district of Karnataka. This reservoir or this dam is located in Karnataka, so this is incorrectly matched. The second one is Gandhi Sagar, Madhya Pradesh. This is in fact correct because Gandhi Sagar dam is located on the Chambal river. The third one, Indira Sagar, Andhra Pradesh. Now see students, Indira Sagar is also situated in Madhya Pradesh and it is situated in Andhra Pradesh as well, but only if it has Polavaram in its name. So if it were Indira Sagar Polavaram, then it would be Andhra Pradesh, but otherwise no. So this is again incorrectly matched. So far 2 out of 3 have been incorrectly matched, whereas Gandhi Sagar is correctly matched with Madhya Pradesh. The fourth one says Maithon. Maithon is in Jharkhand, not Chhattisgarh. So again, this is another incorrectly matched pairing, which means 3 pairs are incorrectly matched and option C is our correct answer. I think most of the students got it wrong because they did not really focus on not correctly matched. Now the next question from Science and Technology, around 51% of the students got this wrong. Question 71, consider the following statements. 1. India's first ever polar research vessel is being co-designed and built indigenously by Garden Reach Shipbuilders and Engineers Limited, GRSE. This statement is, students, accurate, and a memorandum of understanding or an MOU is signed between GRSE and the Government of India. 2. Of course, co-design and indigenously build India's first ever polar research vehicle. The second one says India currently operates Maitri Polar Research Station in the Arctic region. So students, this is inaccurate because India is operating Maitri in Antarctica and not in Arctic region. So Maitri and Bharati are being operated in Antarctica. In the Arctic, India is operating the Himadri research station. So this statement is inaccurate and we have option A as the correct answer. Therefore, 1 only. The next statement, the next question again from government schemes section, and 51% of you did not get this right. So let's take a look at it. Question 81, with reference to the Unified Pension Scheme UPS, consider the following statements. 1. It has been notified as an option to the National Pension System NPS for central government employees. This statement, student, is correct. It is accurate. It has indeed been notified as an option to the NPS for central government employees. The second one says, under the scheme, the government's contribution is increased to 18.5% of the combined basic pay and dearness allowance, while the employee's contribution remains unchanged. Now again, this statement is correct, students. The government's contribution has been increased to 18.5 from earlier 14%, and the employee's contribution actually remains unchanged at 10%. 5%. So this statement is correct. The third one says the scheme provides a full assured pension payout only after completion of 10 years of qualifying services. Now students know the scheme actually provides a minimum assured pension payout of rupees 10,000 and a full pension payout only after 25 years of qualifying service. So this statement is inaccurate. With this, you can at least remove C and D from your option. The fourth one says the unified pension scheme consists of both an individual corpus and a pool corpus with contributions from the central government. Now this again is correct. It is actually a two-fund structure, students. A two-fund structure which has of course an individual corpus where the government also matches its contribution, and again a pool corpus where again central government does provide extra contribution. So this statement is accurate and therefore option B is the correct answer. The next question, 51% almost students got it wrong and it was from the economy section. Question 33, consider the following statements. 1. In India, the non-banking financial companies can access the liquidity adjustment facility window of the Reserve Bank of India. Non-banking financial companies or NBFCs can indeed access the LAF facility. What is the liquidity adjustment facility, students? It is a monetary policy tool basically. LAF is a monetary policy tool for injecting or absorbing liquidity. All right. So yes, NBFCs can access the liquidity adjustment facility, but with a caveat. The second one is, in India, if foreign institutional investors can hold the government securities or GSECs. Again, this statement is correct. So this has been allowed only recently, and of course FIIs or the foreign institutional investors can in fact hold treasury bills, GSECs. All right. The third one says in India, stock exchanges can offer separate trading platforms for debts. Again, this is accurate. And both these provisions, the second and the third, were brought about in 2018. All right. So 1, 2 and 3, all of the above are correct. And therefore, option C happens to be the right answer. So you can see, of course, they can, make use of the LAF facility, but they can do so by registering with the RBI as primary dealers. That is the caveat that I was mentioning. They can do so, they can avail the facility, but they'll have to register with the RBI as primary dealers. So this again, the foreign portfolio investment was done in 2018. It has been permitted since 2018, and again in 2018 a dedicated debt trading platform was also launched. Again, another question from current affairs. Almost 51% of you got this wrong. Question 99. The silver notice recently launched by Interpol is specifically designed to assist member countries in addressing, and the correct answer, students, is option C. It has to deal with organized crime groups. Kindly just remember that when we talk about silver notice, it has to do with organized crime or organized criminal groups, and therefore option C is the correct answer. So it is what? It is a newly introduced international cooperation mechanism, and of course it aims to strengthen the global fight against organized crime, and the primary purpose is to identify, trace as well as locate the proceeds of crime, organized crime. All right. So answer C happens to be your correct answer. So all the detailed solutions have been provided in this PPT, and to get access to the PPT, kindly join us on our Telegram channel. The link is in the description box. The next question is from Science and Tech. Question 46. Consider the following statements. 1. Ballistic missiles are jet propelled at subsonic speeds throughout their flights, while cruise missiles are rocket powered only in the initial phase of flights. Students, what are ballistic missiles exactly? They are long range weapons, or they are long range missiles which are shot vertically and launched into the atmosphere, and they follow a predetermined trajectory. For this to happen, they need an initial boost. They need a power boost in the initial phase of their flight so that they can be launched and then come back, enter again into the atmosphere when they are nearing the target. Okay, and they are long range, up to 5,000 kilometers. So of course, for that initial boost, they are rocket powered in the initial phase of the flight. So this statement is wrong because it is talking about, it has actually interchanged ballistic missiles and cruise missiles. So this statement is inaccurate. The second statement says Agni 5 is the medium range supersonic cruise missile, while BrahMos is a solid fueled intercontinental ballistic missile. Again, no students, Agni 5 is an intercontinental ballistic missile, whereas BrahMos is a supersonic cruise missile. So this is inaccurate, and therefore neither 1 nor 2 or option D is the correct answer. Both the statements in the question have been given wrong. And again, almost 50% of the students have got another question wrong from the science and tech. Question 42, with reference to radioisotope thermoelectric generators, RTGs, consider the following statements. 1. RTGs are miniature fission reactors. Now this statement, students, is inaccurate. RTGs are basically also known as nuclear batteries. They are known as nuclear batteries. They are what? They are compact, they are lightweight power storage systems used in aircrafts. So this statement is incorrect. Alright, the first one happens to be wrong. The second statement says RTGs are used for powering the onboard systems of spacecrafts. Of course, because we are using them as power systems, so they are used for powering onboard systems. Especially there are certain names like Voyager, Cassini, for example. Okay, it is being used for powering such spacecrafts. So this is accurate. The third one says RTGs can use plutonium-238, which is a byproduct of weapons development. This again is accurate. It can use plutonium-238 as plutonium dioxide. So this statement is also accurate. So we can remove any option that has the statement 1 in it and arrive at the correct answer, which is option number 2, or which is option number B. So once again, students, I would like to draw your attention to the various courses that we have in offer for you, and these are the IAS Prelims GS plus CSAT courses, the IAS Prelims crash course for paper 1 GS, the IAS Prelims 2026 crash course for paper 2, which is CSAT, and also the test series, which consists of 34 tests in total, 17 GS tests and 17 CSAT tests. Please check the link of these courses in the description box. Kindly enroll yourself now and make your prelims journey much easier. And of course, for the detailed solutions, please join us at our Telegram channel. The link has been given in the description. Thanks for watching.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.